All right, Gina, thank you so much for joining with me today to discuss the EDI consultant role with ADP. We'll get started with the first question if you just want to tell us about yourself and your professional background in technical or client support.
All right, so my background in technical support consists of working with various employment from working with Verizon Wireless, Apple, to doing technical support for Loan Care, which is like a mortgaging loan company. I've used several systems from Salesforce to Avaya to obviously working with Apple. I know how to technical support the Mac, any type of iPhone. Did in a little bit of CompTIA security, so I know a little bit about that. Um, I've also done the work for a company where I did the certifications for the military for cybersecurity. So, knowing how to certify them for that, definitely required me to have some knowledge of that area as well. Anything that's done with customer service or any type of technical, I probably touched it in my lifetime. So
Perfect. No, thank you for the overview. That's great. Next question here. Can you provide a specific example of a time you demonstrated strong independent problem-solving skills?
that brings me back to a time where I worked for Verizon Wireless. And I used to work through financial services, and a grandmother called in and she was irate. She was screaming. She was like, I can't do this. I'm going to have to terminate my contract. I can't afford this, and she explained to me she was on a fixed income. She bought a phone for her her granddaughter, for them to communicate. And of course, her granddaughter ran up the bill, and, she's on a fixed income. So she was like, I can't afford this. And so, I calmed her down, and we went through the bill together, and I found a reasonable plan where she could break it down and pay it off. And then I also went through the steps of how she could do parental control, so she can restrict certain times of the day, restrict certain things, because we found that as we started to dig deep into her bill, that her granddaughter was using her phone when she was supposed to be in class. So definitely want to restrict those times. So that would alleviate some of that, that bill going over. So yeah, we ended up getting the bill together and putting those controls on there. She didn't terminate her contract. She thanked me at the end. It was like, thank you so much. Because at the end of the day, she just wants to be able to stay in touch with her granddaughter. So,
Okay, great. Next question. How do you prioritize and manage multiple cases or issues simultaneously, especially dealing with multiple stakeholders?
so when dealing with multiple stakeholders, I try to, go to each one and ask, what's their, what they need from me to have an understanding of what they're expecting, whether that be my boss or coworkers or clients, so that I can go ahead and prioritize as such. I'm definitely an organizer. So once I get, okay, what is expected, what do they need? I'm going to, prioritize that and try to put that in some type of form of like check off lists, and just make sure I'm hitting all the points, and checking in with them. Communicating is very important. So as I'm going through the process, making sure I'm doing what they're asking. So, as I get through, as I'm doing the process, check and say, hey, is this what you're, asking, and making sure I'm doing that properly.
Okay,
So,
great. Um, and we touched on this before, but let's elaborate on your technical proficiency a bit. Specific softwares that you've been working with most recently and how you've utilized them.
with my independent contract position in Arise, I use a lot of Five9, a lot of Salesforce, let's see here, Excel, anything with Microsoft I've done, Apple. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Um, and lastly, last question here. How do you approach learning new technologies or complex systems quickly and effectively, especially given the continuous learning aspect of this role?
I understand that I cannot better myself if I don't know what I'm doing wrong. So I appreciate when I'm learning something that, my fellow colleagues or even, my manager comes to me and says, hey, you can fix this. I'm always looking for new ideas and new ways. Um, learning new technology. I love a challenge. So it's probably why I've learned so many. Um, but with me, I'm like all very organized. So it's all about just, taking your time, taking a lot of notes, asking questions. And like I said, going to your superiors, making sure, because I'll be proactive. You most of the time, you won't have to come to me and say, hey, Gina, you need to do this. I'll be like, hey, am I doing this? Because I want to be, better myself and make sure I'm doing the right thing. And I know there will be mistakes, and that's part of the learning process. And that's pretty much how I take it in.
Okay, great. Well, that concludes the questions. Thank you so much for your time, Gina.